We had new trade reports drop that have NBA analysts and fans of the Sacramento Kings alike calling for Monte McNair to take advantage of it, as the Brooklyn Nets are looking to have a fire sale ahead of this year's trade deadline, as they've exceeded expectations coming into this year, and they're looking to bottom out and build out their star-level young talent. And the Sacramento Kings have some options to acquire some players that can fill immediate needs out here on this Kings team in the shooting department, in the depth department, and frankly could even sneakily improve the wing defense. So we're going to break down what the reports are saying, how the Sacramento Kings can take advantage of what's going on in Brooklyn right now, and what the reports are breaking down. So lots of stuff to dive into in this video. But before we do, folks, again, we are on that quest, on that mission to 1,000 subscribers. So make sure, if you want to stay up to date with all the latest Sacramento Kings news, you guys hit that subscribe button. If you're a part of the 83% of our viewers that haven't hit the subscribe button just yet. But let's dive into it, because again, the Kings haven't played too much, and then when you have these stretch of games, you have these different reports, you have all these things come out that, are linking the Kings to improve the roster, because again, the Kings' upper echelon talent is really good right now. Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, DeMar DeRozan have proven that they, as a tandem, can really be a star-level, trio out there. And when Keegan Murray gets that jump shot to finally come back, he's another sort of crucial piece, especially in everything else he does. But really, once the jump shot comes back, there's a proper big four here with this Kings roster. And the Malik Monk coming off the bench, there are some phenomenal pieces, but the depth department, the other assets, the three-point shooting, the things that will really turn this team from a good team in the Western Conference to like, hey, this is a bona fide contender. This is a bona fide spot. It's going to have to come down to a couple moves being made by Monte McNair, which ends up putting this team over the top. And now the report has come out regarding an opportunity that can happen for this Kings team that a lot of people are hoping the squad takes advantage of, as the Nets are expected to be open for business right now, and rising star guard Cam Thomas is widely considered to be available. And this is coming from Sam Amick of The Athletic, and we've heard for months now at this point, essentially a couple of guys that are on the Brooklyn Nets having been linked to the Sacramento Kings, and right now, especially with a bit of sample size under our belts, watching this Kings team, knowing that the star level talent is there, there's a lot of people calling for Monte McNair to come out and really make some moves, make some trades to take advantage of this window that's been opened up after acquiring DeMar DeRozan in the offseason. So what's going on? What's happening here now at this point? Well, there's been obviously some analysts, some writers coming out, making some, proposed trades, some things that have popped up. And essentially, Cam Johnson and Cam Thomas are the two guys that really have sparked the interest of a lot of Kings fans and NBA writers alike. So essentially, Cam Johnson fit on Sacramento's roster is nearly seamless. He's a knockdown shooter who can play the 3 or the 4 position. With the Kings' lack of outside shooting, outside of Keegan Murray, Keegan is averaging 36 minutes per game and tied for the 7th most in the entire NBA. Getting him help out there on the wings would go a long way to not only help the Kings as a whole, but specifically take some of the pressure off of Murray. And obviously, we know Keegan Murray has taken steps up in his game in all aspects, with the exception of the three-point shot, which hasn't really come into form just yet. In seasons past, we've seen him, be able to really knock down those threes and maybe taking the load off him a little bit more from being essentially the primary, three-point shooter out there on the wing, rebounder, either those natural 3 position. He's getting a ton of boards this season, playing a ton of defense, getting another kind of long, wiry 3-and-D guy out there on the wing could really help, take the load off Keegan Murray and maybe ease up, the responsibility so he can go out there and just shoot those threes in a more comfortable rate, and then those percentages go up. So, bringing Cam Johnson not only improves in terms of the talent that he has, but also could unlock Keegan Murray a little bit more. But essentially, the breakdowns go on to say that, at 6'8" and a 6'10" wingspan, Johnson would give the Kings another lengthy defender and would immediately flip the Kings' size concerns from a weakness to a strength. The conversation of starters and lineups would be interesting, but having more good players is never a bad thing, and a problem Mike Brown and the staff would likely be happy to solve. So, again, Cam Johnson makes the team a little bit more beefier out there in the front line. Again, just a long, wiry wing player, and it's not unfathomable that this trade could go down, because Cam Johnson, right, in terms of his stats this season, putting up some really, really good numbers, right? 18 points per game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, but he's on a pretty expensive contract, which makes him not just the immediate slam dunk. Like, everyone's going to be clamoring after this guy once he's made available, unless you're in a contender, unless he can really add to your roster depth and stuff. And the Kings can make a trade happen pretty reasonably. So, you can make Cam Johnson go to the Kings, you essentially take on a bit of the extra salary, the $23-24 million, but you give up Kevin Huerter, who is a guy that's smaller, is still a three-point shooter for this Kings team, but again, his inconsistencies have frustrated Kings fans a ton, and while he has improved on the defensive end, it is something, Cam Johnson would just be an upgrade, and then you give the Brooklyn Nets some some draft capital compensation, so they get the young players that they need to get the young players that they're looking for, and out there in the future, and just kind of a win-win situation. Now, maybe the Kings would have to give up a first in order to acquire Cam Johnson. That's a little bit of a different story. But if you can get Cam Johnson and essentially pull in give up 2 second round picks and Kevin Huerter to acquire Cam Johnson, I think that's a very, very nice deal for Sacramento. For a first, again, you consider it, but that might be an expensive price. But the Kings are in win now mode right now. I think everyone wants to see Sacramento maybe not just completely sacrifice their entire future to make one of these moves happen, make one of these deals go down, but try to make some moves to improve the team in the short term. This is the time to do it. The Kings have that sort of really star level potential. So again, this is a deal I'm definitely happy with, and I'd maybe even go in the direction of a first, but you'd have to be pretty confident that Cam Johnson is that significant upgrade over Kevin Huerter, who this season, 31% from the three-point line. You have to imagine those stats are going to go up, but does play a bit more of a redundant position than a Cam Johnson would. Cam Johnson can play more of a forward spot, even though Kevin Huerter's out there on the wing and stuff. Cam Johnson's a much better wing defender, more of a consistent shooter here now at this point. Like looking at the stats, 40% from behind the three-point line and stuff like that there, and a little bit older, a little bit more, just a bit more of a fit, right? A bit more of a fit in terms of what this team needs here now at this point. So again, that 1-for-1 swap and then minimal draft compensation is something that I think a lot of Kings fans be excited about, be intrigued by. But the other guy, and I flashed his stats up there a little bit, that's also in the mix, it's also in these discussions, is Cam Thomas, who is having a breakout season this year, right? Looking at his stats, right? 25 points per game, 3 rebounds, 3 assists for the Brooklyn Nets. Now, there was an expectation he'd be able to sort of, be a player that has a breakout year, being a good stats, bad team guy, and he's definitely had good stats, but the team hasn't actually been that bad. He's been a winning player. He's not hucking up shots. His efficiency's actually been pretty solid. The only area that's a little bit of concern for me is, the 9% on corner threes, even though he's shooting close to 40% from the regular three-point line, but overall, Cam Thomas has been a really, really amazing scorer, just a really nice piece, and he's still super young, right? 23 years old, so I'm surprised that the Nets are just super willing to throw him out into any trade talks for a young rebuilding team. He screams the type of guy you'd like to have out there on a squad that's rebuilding to, just see what you got. See what you have and see if, the young talent, the young draft prospects can come out, and then, just have kind of a bucket getter, a guy that can put the ball in the hole. So even when you're tanking or when you're losing games, you can put the ball in the net and not have a horrible product out there on the basketball court. But regardless, the Nets are looking to trade Cam Thomas, according to Sam Amick, and he's a guy that can put in some buckets and could have an impact on this Kings team. So a little hypothetical, thrown out there, especially like this would be a fleece in my opinion. If the Kings can make this happen, Cam Johnson, Cam Thomas, and then coming back, the stats are a little bit inflated, so you might be buying high on a couple of these dudes. But giving up Kevin Huerter, giving up the second round picks, and then just throwing in a first out there in 2026, if Monte McNair can make a trade like this happen, it's something that I think you really have to pay attention to. It's something you really have to look at and say, hey, this is something that could really impact the Kings' win now ability, or you're getting a legitimate scorer alongside of De'Aaron Fox, alongside of DeMar DeRozan, right? That's, out there, maybe not necessarily a perfect fit, but he can shoot the three, he can score, he can do a lot of stuff as a bucket getter. And then, a 3-and-D wing to play the forward for position out there in the front lines, and you keep Keon Ellis, or you keep Malik Monk, then you have the depth that you're looking for. You have those players that you can rely upon to say, hey, we have the star power now, and then we also have the role players to completely round out this roster, as you'd be hoping for. Then you get a Devin Carter back, you have a Trey Lyles that's in shape here now at this point, and maybe some world you could get, Alex Len's a solid backup center. If you can get one more, big out there in these situations, it's just a perfect sort of scenario. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I think my camera's frozen here now at this point, but you can still hear me. Anyways, subscribe to the channel. I'm signing out.